The ballroom shimmered under soft golden lights, laughter swirling through the air like a melody. I held my champagne glass delicately, smiling as I listened to the wives around me trade stories about piano recitals, family trips, and the chaos of keeping up with husbands who seemed married to their jobs. For a while, I felt like I belonged, like I was part of their polished, glittering circle. It was comforting, almost intoxicating, to just blend in. Then, out of nowhere, one woman leaned in, her cheeks flushed and her pearl earrings catching the light. "I'm so happy. Next year they're raising their salaries from 100,000 to 110. We can finally renovate our kitchen," she gushed. Glasses clinked, laughter rose even higher, and everyone seemed caught up in the joy of it. But me? My smile froze, my hand stiff halfway to my lips. The bubbles in my glass suddenly felt heavy. Harry had never mentioned any raise. Actually, he'd always been so firm, so insistent about his number, 80,000 a year. That was the figure I had lived by, the truth I thought guided every choice we made as a couple. And now? That one sentence cracked it wide open. I felt my chest tighten as a quiet storm brewed inside me. Was she mistaken? Or had Harry been hiding something from me all along? Before I could even catch my breath, another wife turned toward me, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "And what about you two? Any big plans with the raise?" she asked, her voice dripping with innocent enthusiasm. Every woman at that table looked at me, waiting, expecting me to join the chorus of excitement. My heart thudded in my chest, but I forced my lips into a smile I didn't feel. "Oh, yes," I said, my voice steady though my stomach twisted into knots. "We're thinking of investing for his retirement." The lie slipped out so smoothly, I almost startled myself. They all nodded approvingly, murmuring things like, "Smart choice," and "very wise." On the outside, I looked like every other polished wife in the room. Inside, though, I was burning with questions I couldn't dare ask. Not there, not now. The conversation carried on, laughter filling every corner again, but I could barely hear it. My mind replayed her words like a broken record. 100,000. 110. If Harry had lied about something as basic as his salary, what else had he hidden from me? I glanced across the room at him, laughing with his colleagues, his hand resting casually on a glass of whiskey. He looked so at ease, so smug. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I even recognized the man I'd married. I sipped the last of my champagne, letting the bubbles sting my throat just enough to keep me grounded. Around me, the women kept talking. Vacations, shopping sprees, new kitchens, but their voices felt distant, like a soundtrack playing in another room. I nodded when someone laughed, pretended to join in, but every beat of my heart was louder than the chatter. My mind was locked on one thing, Harry's voice in my head, repeating 80,000 as if it were gospel. When the evening wound down, Harry slid his arm around my waist, pulling me close. "You having fun?" he asked, his breath warm against my ear. I smiled back, playing the role of the devoted wife, nodding like everything was perfect. But inside, it wasn't joy I felt. It was suspicion, sharp and gnawing. I wondered if he could feel the stiffness in my body, if he sensed the wall quietly rising between us. On the ride home, I stared out the window, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold. Harry hummed along to the radio, as carefree as a teenager, while I sat in silence, pretending to be tired. But sleep was the farthest thing from my mind. That little comment at the party had cracked something wide open, and I knew there was no turning back. Because when we got home, the real night was only just beginning. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the shadows stretching long across the room. Harry was already half asleep beside me, his breathing slow and steady, like nothing in the world could ever trouble him. But for me, my mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's smile, her voice echoing the words about the raise. My chest felt heavy, as though I was holding onto a secret that wasn't even mine. I whispered into the darkness, my voice barely audible. Why would he lie? All these years? The question slipped out before I could stop it, floating in the quiet like a confession. And that's when Harry stirred, muttering groggily, "Stop worrying so much. You know I don't make that kind of money." His tone was dismissive, irritated even, as if my doubts were nothing more than a nuisance. That small sentence cut deeper than he could imagine. Because it wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Cold, careless, almost practiced, like he'd brushed me off 100 times before. My gut twisted with a certainty I couldn't shake. He was hiding something. My instincts screamed louder than any words he could use to cover the truth. I turned onto my side, watching the shadows move across the wall, and in that moment, I made myself a silent promise. By morning, I would find out exactly what Harry was keeping from me. The clock glowed 2:17 a.m., mocking me with every passing minute. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen, the tick of the clock on the dresser, even the distant bark of a dog outside. Everything felt amplified, louder than usual, as if the universe itself wanted to keep me awake. My body begged for rest, but my mind replayed the same scene on a cruel loop. Her words, Harry's laughter, that smug ease in his eyes. I thought about all the times I had trusted him without question, the nights I balanced our bills, the weekends I skipped little luxuries because, according to him, money was tight. $80,000, he had said. Always 80. I remembered the way he'd sigh heavily when I asked about savings, the way he'd make me feel guilty for wanting small things, like a new sofa or a weekend getaway. And now I couldn't stop wondering, where had that missing money really gone? I turned onto my back again, clutching the sheet against my chest, as though it could hold me together. Doubt, sharp and restless, coiled inside me like a snake refusing to release its grip. I wanted to shake him awake, demand answers right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I lay silent, staring into the darkness, knowing that whatever truth he was hiding, it was going to change everything. And deep down, I already felt the shift, like a storm rolling in, unstoppable. By the time dawn started to creep through the curtains, I still hadn't slept a single minute. My eyes felt heavy, but my mind was sharper than ever, humming with restless determination. I could hear Harry's alarm buzzing softly, his groggy hand fumbling to silence it. He stretched, yawned, and kissed my forehead like nothing in the world was wrong. That kiss, once comforting, now felt like a cover-up. "Try to rest today," he murmured, grabbing his tie. I just nodded, pretending to be too tired to speak. But as I watched him button his shirt and knot his tie with the same casual rhythm he always had, I realized something important. I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't live with questions gnawing at me, with a husband who dismissed my every doubt. The woman I was last night, naive, trusting, was gone. When the door closed behind him, I sat up straight, my heart pounding with resolve. I knew exactly what I had to do, even if it terrified me. There was only one way to get the truth, and it wasn't by asking Harry anymore. No, I needed proof. Cold, undeniable proof. And as I reached for my phone, I already knew the call I was going to make, the one that could shatter everything, but finally set me free. I sat at my desk during lunch break, the hum of the office printer echoing behind me. My hands trembled as I dialed the number for Harry's HR department, rehearsing the lie over and over in my head. When a polite voice finally answered, I forced a steady tone. "Hi, I'm helping my husband with our tax paperwork, and I just need some details about his contract." My throat felt dry, but the words slipped out smoother than I expected. There was a pause, one long enough to make my stomach twist. I could almost hear the hesitation on the other end, as if the woman was weighing whether or not to give me what I asked for. Then, with a clipped, professional tone, she said, "Of course, Mrs. Hayes. I'll email you the documents right away." Relief and dread hit me at the same time. I thanked her quickly, hung up, and sat there, staring at my inbox like it held Pandora's box. When the email finally arrived, I clicked it open, my pulse hammering so loudly I could feel it in my temples. The PDF loaded slowly, the page dragging across the screen as though mocking me. And then I saw it, clear, undeniable, in black and white. Harry Hayes. Annual salary, $100,000. My breath caught in my throat. 10 years of marriage, $20,000 each year unaccounted for, $120,000. Gone. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew about my husband collapsed. I leaned back in my chair, the office noise around me fading into nothing but a dull blur. My hands gripped the edges of the desk, knuckles white, as rage surged through me like fire. 10 years. 10 years of clipped conversations about money, of me budgeting every grocery bill, of saying no to vacations because things were tight. And all this time, he had been pocketing $20,000 behind my back. I thought of the moments when I'd scraped together savings for Christmas gifts, the way I'd felt guilty buying myself a new pair of shoes, the countless nights I'd swallowed disappointment because I believed him. I closed my eyes, and a flood of memories rushed in. Harry sighing about bills, Harry brushing me off with that tired smile, Harry convincing me that we were barely making ends meet. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the betrayal, the deliberate deception, the rewriting of our life together. I printed the contract, the paper still warm in my hands, and tucked it into my bag like a weapon. My reflection in the computer screen startled me, my face pale, my eyes burning, my lips pressed into a line. I barely recognized myself in that moment, but maybe that was a good thing. Maybe the woman I'd been, trusting, blind, forgiving, was gone. And the woman I was becoming. She was ready to confront him, no matter the cost. I carried the papers home like they were dynamite, tucked tightly under my arm, every step echoing with the weight of what I'd discovered. The city around me felt different, colder, harsher, as if it already knew the truth I had just uncovered. When I walked through the door, Harry's jacket hung neatly on the hook, his shoes lined up just the way he always left them. For years, those little details had felt comforting. Now they looked like props in a play I no longer believed in. I placed the contract on the kitchen table, smoothing the edges as though preparing a stage for the performance he didn't know he was about to give. The house was silent, but inside me, the storm was deafening. Questions swirled like debris in a tornado. Where did the money go? How long had he been laughing at my trust? Did he think I would never find out? I could almost hear his excuses forming already, slippery and polished, ready to deflect. But this time, I wasn't going to be silenced. I wasn't going to let him twist the truth until I doubted my own memory. No, this time I had proof. And as I stared at that contract, the ink still crisp, I knew tonight would be the night everything changed. I would look Harry in the eye and force him to tell me what those numbers really meant. And deep down, I feared the answer more than I could admit. By the time Harry walked through the door that evening, dinner sat untouched on the table, candles flickering like silent witnesses. I was already there, waiting, the contract resting in front of me like a loaded gun. He smiled when he saw me, loosening his tie as if it were just another ordinary night. "Smells good," he said casually, glancing at the plates I hadn't touched. But my face must have given me away, because his smile faltered. "Tell me again," I said, my voice calm but sharp as glass. "How much do you make a year?" His eyes flickered with confusion, or maybe it was fear, but he quickly recovered, smirking like it was some kind of joke. "You know, 80, like I've always told you." The way he said it, with that same easy arrogance, made my blood boil. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I simply slid the contract across the table. "Funny," I whispered, my tone icy, "because HR says it's 100. His face drained of color as he looked down, the paper trembling in his hands. For a moment, he tried to hold his composure, clearing his throat, muttering something about tax reasons and deductions. But I could see it in his eyes. Panic, guilt, the desperate scramble of a man caught in his own web of lies, and I knew he was about to unravel. He rubbed his forehead, avoiding my eyes, as if staring at the table could rewrite the numbers on that contract. "Karen, you don't understand," he muttered, his voice breaking just slightly. "It's complicated. Taxes, deductions. You know how messy finances can get." I leaned forward, my tone steady, unforgiving. "Messy? Harry, this isn't messy. It's a lie. 10 years of lies. Where did all that money go?" My heart pounded, but my voice didn't waver. He tried again, fumbling for words, stringing together excuses that sounded thinner with each breath. I was trying to protect us. It's not what you think. But his hands betrayed him, trembling as he reached for his glass of water. I crossed my arms, my stare piercing through his defenses. Protect us? By hiding $20,000 a year? By making me believe we couldn't afford basic things? My voice rose, laced with anger and disbelief. Finally, he slammed the glass down, the sound sharp against the wood. His shoulders slumped as if the fight had drained right out of him. Fine, he spat, his voice cracking. You want the truth? Years ago. I slipped. Rose got pregnant. Those extra 20 grand, they're for my son with her. The words hung in the air, heavy and cruel. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment the entire room seemed to stop moving. My chest tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. Rose. The name alone was enough to slice through me like a blade. I remembered her vaguely. One of those women from the office, always lingering a little too close, her laugh just a bit too sweet when Harry was around. And now, the truth was out. She wasn't just some harmless colleague. She was the woman who had stolen years of my life without me even realizing it. I stared at him, my voice trembling but colder than I'd ever heard it. So, all this time, while I was sacrificing, while I was trusting you, you were funneling money to another woman and her child? He couldn't even meet my gaze. He just nodded weakly, shame flickering across his pale face. But that flicker was nothing compared to the inferno rising inside me. My love, my patience, my loyalty, they had all been traded for lies. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The woman who once would have crumbled, who would have drowned in tears, was gone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply sat back, silent, letting the truth burn its way into my bones. Because I knew what came next. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice. And Harry had no idea just how ready I was to deliver it. I pushed my chair back slowly, the scrape of wood against tile cutting through the silence like a warning bell. Harry looked up, his face a mask of desperation now, his lips parting as if he could still spin one more excuse. But I was done listening. I stood tall, every ounce of me steady, the contract still lying between us like the tombstone of our marriage. You lied about your salary. You lied about a child. You lied about everything, I said, my voice firm. He reached for me, panic flashing in his eyes. Karen, please, I had no choice. The way he said it, so pitiful, almost made me laugh. No choice? He had made hundreds of choices, each one a dagger to my trust. I pulled a crisp envelope from my bag and slid it across the table, watching his hands hesitate before touching it. What's this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Divorce papers, I answered, my tone cold, deliberate. His jaw dropped, eyes widening as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. Already prepared, I continued. And thanks to the no infidelity clause in our prenup, you won't just lose me, Harry. You'll lose everything you thought you could hide. The color drained from his face, and for the first time in years I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear, and I savored it. He scrambled to his feet, pacing the room like a trapped animal. Karen, you can't do this to me. Think about us. Think about everything we've built. His voice cracked, but there was no warmth in it, only fear of losing control. I folded my arms, steady as stone, and tilted my head. Us? I repeated. There hasn't been an us in years, Harry. You made sure of that the moment you chose her. He reached across the table, knocking over his glass in the process, water spreading like a stain between us. I swear, I'll make it right. I'll end it. I'll fix this. But his promises fell flat, empty, just like the late nights and the excuses I'd swallowed for too long. I took a deep breath, feeling the strength of every sleepless night, every doubt, every wound he had carved into me. You don't get to fix this, I said firmly. Not anymore. His eyes darted to the papers, then back to me, searching for even the smallest sign of hesitation. But there was none. I was past the point of fear, past the point of pain. I had proof, I had the law, and most importantly, I had myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't the woman left in the dark. I was the one holding the light. And Harry? He was already shrinking in the shadows he had created. Weeks later, I walked into my new office, the plaque on the door gleaming, Karen Hayes, attorney at law. The smell of fresh paint mixed with leather-bound books filled the room, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. My pain had fueled every late-night study session, every exam, every step toward reclaiming myself. I hadn't just survived Harry's betrayal. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, stronger, sharper, untouchable. Meanwhile, Harry's world crumbled. Word spread quickly at his company, whispers about the affair and the secret child that had drained him dry. Rose didn't stick around long after the money vanished. Apparently, her love had an expiration date. I heard he'd moved into a shabby apartment across town, a far cry from the polished home he once lorded over. And for once, his downfall didn't hurt me. It satisfied me. It was justice, plain and simple. As I stood by the window of my office, sunlight spilling across my desk, I allowed myself a small smile. He had thought he could deceive me, control me, diminish me. But in the end, his secret didn't just cost him his marriage, it cost him everything. And me? I found something he never expected: power, independence, a life where I didn't need him at all. And that, more than anything, was the sweetest revenge.